Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be taking our fourth look through my PAL vintage Xbox game collection. Now I absolutely love this system, and there's another 50 or 60 games here to have a look at, and there's some real crackers and rarities included. So that will be the subject of today's video. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay then, so we're going to be picking up pretty much where we left off last videos, but with the next Need for Speed game, which is Need for Speed Underground 2. A lot of people regard this one as one of the greatest of the Need for Speed series. I've got to remember not thinking there was that much difference between any of them, to be honest. They're one of those classic EA games. I mean, I suppose it is good, and I think certainly the Xbox had its fair share of decent racers, and the Need for Speed series is certainly one that qualifies as that. Next one that I would never touch in a million years because I have no interest really in NFL, but this is one that's ended up in my collection probably through a job lot or something like that. That's NFL Fever 2003, American football game, which always surprises me that they were even released in the UK and the European zone a bit like this, really, which is the NHL, so the hockey, National Hockey League, NHL 2002. Once again, you've got to wonder how many actual copies of this sold in the UK compared to, say, the FIFA football games. Next one's a bit of a classic, though. This is obscure. So in school, they teach you things you never wanted to know about. This one is one of those sort of creepy horror titles. It's only come out as a 12, so it's not like Resident Evil or something like that, but it is a survival horror game, and it's sort of set in a school environment. Got a little bit pricier, this one, than perhaps some of the other ones, but apparently it does come recommended. The survival horror genre is not one that I'm really into myself, but when I don't mind watching people play them on like playthroughs and stuff, but not one that I enjoy playing myself. Oddworld, Munch's Oddysee. This is quite an early Xbox game, and it was also an Xbox exclusive as well, with the Oddworld series. Played this one a couple of years back, actually really good still. Inventive gameplay once you get the hang of the controls, and that is one of the hardest bits for this game, is that the controls aren't, I would say, as easy to get your head round as some of the other ones, but still really good. Infogrames is the name of the company that released that one. That's Munch's Oddysee, Oddworld Munch's Oddysee. Next we've got Operation Flashpoint Elite. So apparently 92% on Xbox World. One of those sort of early military shooter games, squad based, a bit like an early Call of Duty in effect. Not played that one, can't really comment on it, but it is what it is. There's lots of those around. Well, this next one, and certainly the one after it, are a couple of games I absolutely love. I was a huge fan of Outrun in the original arcade when it came out in the 80s, and it was awful on the home computers, sort of the Spectrum and Commodore and ones like that. However, when it got to the Xbox, it really came into its own and far surpassed the arcade experience. So this is, it says on the front, the sequel we've waited a lifetime for. 9 out of 10 Xbox gamer. Outrun 2 is really, really good. I mean, it is fantastic. It's a whole load more courses, and it's got mission modes. You could play, at the time, you could play Xbox Live. You do drifting. There's an arcade mode, so you can play the original arcade. Absolutely fantastic version of Outrun 2. However, it was surpassed the following year by Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast. Now, this is perhaps the pinnacle of many people's Xbox collections. This copy goes for about £40 to £50 if you're lucky enough to get a really nice mint one with its booklet. I've certainly played it quite a bit with my son, and we absolutely love it. Once again, it's got, you can play Outrun arcade and Outrun 2, and you can play. It's got lots of different routes. There's 15 different levels. That when you've unlocked enough of it, you can actually do a 15 stage uninterrupted course all the way around. It's absolutely fantastic. Stacks of new cars, and yeah, so 38 tracks. 15 were brand new. Superb stuff. The good news is as well, there are cheat codes for both these Outrun games online. So if you want, you can go online, put in a cheat code, and it'll unlock all the tracks for you, which is really cool. If you ever come across Outrun 2006, it's the one to get for sure. Next is Outlaw Volleyball, TDK. This is one of those ones, well, it's a bit like the Dead or Alive beach volleyball. Interesting subject. Sporting games vary in quality on the Xbox. I believe the Outlaw series, they did Outlaw Golf as well, are actually pretty good. Next is another one which many people regard as a classic, and I have to say, what I've played of this I've really enjoyed, and that's Panzer Dragoon Orta. It's a bit like an on-rails shooter, except you're flying on the back of this dragon, basically. Once again, the controls might take a little bit of time for you to really get your head around, but once you've mastered those, the game is an absolute joy to play. In fact, so much that they even released an Xbox with this packed in, and the Xbox itself has got some really nice Panzer Dragoon Orta styling. In fact, when I edit this one, I will pop a photo of that particular console in, because it's one I'd love to get, but they're super expensive. I don't think they were actually even released in the PAL market. Next we've got Pariah. So this is another shooter game. Perfect remedy for first-person shooter ever. There we are. So it came highly recommended on the by the Xbox magazines of the time. Not one I've played. Can't really remember much about this one at all. Next is a movie tie-in. So Peter Jackson's King Kong. So if you ever remember that game, that film rather, and it is King Kong and Godzilla. There's some of the other monsters that he fights in the movie. Crashing around. Was it New York? It was saying it's usually New York that gets pulled to bits in these movies, isn't it? But that's basically it. And you play as the man trying to hunt Kong, or you can play as Kong himself. Certainly a game that I love myself is Pool Shark. So I love playing pool and snooker. This one's not bad. I mean, there's not many snooker pool games on the Xbox. There's literally just a couple. So any of them are gratefully received. This one's not bad by any means, but it's perhaps not one that you'd spend hours on playing if you had chance. So this is Prince of Persia. So there were a few Prince of Persia games for the Xbox. This one is The Sands of Time. And these really did launch the Prince of Persia franchise, really, and it's still popular to this day. Fantastic graphics for the time, and hugely popular even to this day. Good news is, because it was such a popular game back then, it's really easy to find, and you'll find copies of this will turn up. If you ever buy any Job Lots of games, there's usually one or two Prince of Persia games in there. This was the follow-up, Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones. Once again, it comes pretty highly rated by the magazines, and it's literally more of the same. They're making a big bones about that having in-game Dolby Digital audio. And then we've got another one. This is the third one in the collection, which is Prince of Persia: Warrior Within. Excellent graphics on this one. It does say you could download new content from Xbox Live. I doubt that's still up there now. And literally more of the same again. So within the Xbox lifetime, the 3 games. This one's a great little one. So this is a Prisoner of War title, and it's a Codemasters and Y Games present Prisoners of War, located at Stalagluft and Colditz. So Stalagluft, they all had individual numbers. So I'm imagining that you got Colditz in the background there, and also it was a Stalagluft 6, which was just east of Colditz, and that was where the Great Escape happened, where the 70-odd prisoners escape. So that's what this one is, and it's the real classic. It's everything you would expect. You have to go around the camps and bribe guards and find bits and dig tunnels. It's to make your way out across Germany. Fantastic stuff. Very, very ambitious title to do, but they pulled it off. ProCast, so this was actually a fishing simulator of all things, if you can believe it. And you can actually buy, although I've not got it, an actual Xbox compatible fishing rod. So you can plug a fishing rod into your Xbox and cast, so you can be a fisherman. I mean, back in the days of Junior Angler, you never would have thought this, would you? I do remember playing on the Atari 2600 a fishing game. I can't for the life of me remember what it is now, but this is certainly taking it to another extreme. Onto a soccer one. Well, you know my feelings on soccer. There's loads of them for the Xbox, miles too many, more than anything, to be honest, and I don't actually go out of my way to try and pick them up. I do, however, keep them if they're ones in my collection that I haven't already got. So this is Pro Evolution Soccer 4. Apparently the Pro Evo series was very, very good. Obviously eclipsed by FIFA these days. Now another couple of absolutely fantastic racing games, and this is the Project Gotham Racing. Once again, I played these with my son, and we've had some good fun on this. Absolutely blistering speed. You can, the Xbox, of course, you can rip your own CDs to it and have them playing in the background. It's a pretty darn good game, that Project Gotham Racing. So good, in fact, that they brought out the sequel, Project Gotham Racing 2, which had more cars and more tracks and more locations. Another of those two really, really good Xbox racing games. Here's the Classics edition of Project Gotham Racing 2. So got a 10 out of 10, the best, it says there, quite simply the best driving strip racing game ever, and that was official Xbox magazine. A lot of people absolutely rave about it. It certainly is great, and the sense of speed when you're driving is what makes it perhaps particularly good. They really managed to capture the essence of the speed part of it. This is Project Snowblind. Now, what was this one again? I'm trying to remember if I can... this is like a futuristic shooter, as I recall. The outcome of experimental battlefield surgery is something more than human. Yeah, I see. Yes, it's a bit of just like a futuristic shooter more than anything. Don't remember an awful lot about it. I mean, it's EDOS, and back then they had a real reputation for quality, so it's probably not too bad. And the last one in this particular stack, which we're halfway through, is Pew Pop Fever. This is by the team that made Sega, Sonic the Hedgehog at Sega, and this is basically one of those ones, you can just about see it on the spine there. It's one of those ones, sort of like 3 in a row pop games, and it's got the balloons either side, so that's what that is. So it's a youngster's sort of a puzzle game, but as I said, it is made by the Sonic the Hedgehog team, so possibly of interest to those fans. So it's about halfway through now, so I'm just going to pause there. I'm going to make a little bit more room, and we'll get the second half out. Okay then, so the next one is Quantum Redshift. This is another one of those ones that when you actually play it, it moves at a blistering pace. And this is a bit like a futuristic Wipeout sort of clone, really. Obviously Wipeout was massive on the PlayStation and PlayStation 2, so the Xbox wanted its own equivalent, and that's basically what Quantum Redshift is, and it's not bad by any means. Now this next one, Rallisport Challenge, I seem to remember was one of the launch games, and I bought this one when the Xbox was first released back in 2002, was it? Yeah, I'm sure this is one of the original ones, and I thought it was good. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good to have a racing game. I sort of bought Halo, I bought this one, I bought Dead or Alive. I bought about 5 or 6 different games in the first week or so, and that was one of them, and it was good to have one. This is Rally Fusion. Don't remember too much about this one. Activision. Just another rallying game, I guess. Now the next one I really do love, and that is this one. So this is Red Dead Revolver. So before Red Dead Redemption came along and Red Dead Redemption 2, Rockstar had already done this one. Was almost becoming a bit forgotten now, and that's Red Dead Revolver. Very, very tough. I always remember people commenting that it was almost like watching a movie, and it was the first real sort of open world Western game ever made. I mean, there was Gun, which was one that came out a little bit before that, but this is truly something, and it was really groundbreaking in its day. Definitely worth you trying to pick a copy up. Super simple to get these days. It's not expensive by any means, and definitely worth a look. Next one is Reign of Fire, Let the Battle Ignite. So Reign of Fire was a British movie, so once again sort of set where it's sort of a fantasy film where ancient dragons sort of come back to terrorize the modern day London, and this is it. So actual fact, you actually play as the dragons, and your job is to destroy as many sort of buildings and things as you go. A bit of fun, something a bit different for sure. Absolute classic, and one which franchise that's still around to this day, and this is Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Tides of War. This is one that was designed to be played very much on Xbox Live, but the solo game on it was also equally good, and you're just going around killing Nazis and things. It's fantastic stuff. Recommended. If you're into sort of Second World War shooters, being the Americans fighting the SS, you're going to enjoy it. And it is a real classic game, that one. Reservoir Dogs, so this is a bit of a rare one. This was a tie to the Quentin Tarantino movie. Really, really great. They sadly didn't get many of the cast back, but they did manage to get Michael Madsen back. Mr. Blonde in the film, and he recreates his role as a sort of sick guy in the gang, and he adds a little spice to it. It really has to be seen to be believed, this game. It comes as an 18 because it doesn't pull any punches. It is quite violent, but then again, that's the nature of the movie, and it sort of takes every aspect of the film, all the sort of backstories that are referred to in the movie, and turns that into the actual game. Because if you remember the film, not really a lot happens. They go to the cafe at the start, you see a little flashback of the actual robbery, and then everything else is set afterwards in the warehouse. So all the little events that lead up to it, that's what comprises the Reservoir Dogs game, and it is very, very good, but a bit scarce, that one. So next is Richard Burns Rally. It's yet another third rallying game that we're seeing today. Once again, this is one that I picked up more recently, so I haven't actually given this one a try yet, but looks interesting. This is quite fun. So anyone who is old enough probably remembers Robot Wars on the BBC with Craig Charles as the presenter. Great fun, and basically it is that. It's just you customize and make your own robots and then put them into an arena to battle against bigger robots. It's exactly what you would expect. It's good fun. It's mad as anything. This is, I believe, the first boxing game that we've come across, and this is Rocky. So this takes aspects of the first 4 Rocky films. There you go. Put Rocky there, and you've got Mr. T from number 3, and what's he called, Carlos Drago from Rocky 4. There's Apollo Creed from 2 as well. So you just box against up to 20 different opponents. You work your way through the movie with your career, you get fit, and you just play as Rocky. It says, follow the Italian stallion's career through all 5 Rocky movies against 20 opponents. So there we are. So if you are into boxing games, the Xbox has got one. Next, we've got a couple of rugby games. So much like the EA FIFA annual offerings each year, this is EA Rugby. So this is just if you're into your rugby, which many people are in the UK, this is the one for you. So this is EA Sports Rugby 2005 and EA Sports Rugby 06, which was the follow-up. Next, we've got Samurai Warriors. The sort of title says it all, really, doesn't it? It's a sort of a 3D environment beat 'em up. You work your way through the story. Apparently very, very good, this one. You can play co-op as well, or against your opponents. Yeah, Samurai Wars, quite easy to find that one. It was a bit of a seller in its day. This one's another one of those ones that seems to be very popular these days. If you ever came across another early Xbox game, which is called Time Splitters, which is not going to be in this video, but will probably be in the next one when we do the tease. This was made by the team that did Time Splitters, and they, of course, were the team behind GoldenEye on the N64, so it's got a really good pedigree. This is another one of those psychological horror titles. Not really my cup of tea. I can't really get into these. I prefer more quick hit arcade sort of titles, but it's good none the same, and it's one that's quite pricey. It's creeping up in price, so you might want to keep an eye out for that one. Secret Weapons over Normandy. So this is you flying a B-52 bomber during the Second World War over Nazi Germany and Europe. This was the game for console that was created by the team that made the classic Star Wars game X-Wing and X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, which, if you've never played those on PC, are absolutely amazing and long overdue for a revival in my opinion. But that's the same team that made those, made this particular one, so it's worth tracking down. LucasArts, the same as X-Wing versus TIE. Absolutely fantastic this, and really, really authentic. Keep an eye out for that one. Another racer here, so it's Sega GT 2002. I don't believe this is particularly special in any sort of way, to my knowledge. I pretty much played all the races on the Xbox. Can't remember a great deal about that particular one. Next we've got Shattered Union. Is this the sort of an end of the world scenario game, and it's a bit like a sort of Command and Conquer, so you have to it's a sim game, and you have to rebuild the nation after a disaster. So that's what that one is. I always found those sorts of games pretty difficult to play on a console. They just needed to be on PC more than anything. This is another quite expensive game, perhaps not as expensive as you might think. You could probably pick one up if you're patient for £15 to £20, and that's Shenmue II. Now, this particular one came with a second disc, which actually had Shenmue the movie, which sort of replays the first game, and it's important to try and find it complete if you can. And there is a Shenmue 3 actually on the way. But yeah, this is one of those highly regarded Sega games. It's a massive, massive open world to it. And there's loads to explore. It's got fantastic graphics. For its day, it's got fantastic graphics. And there's loads in it. As I recall, you can actually go into an arcade and play the original arcade Outrun, actually within that game. So it's just nuts, isn't it? Next, we got one of, well, it's a Shrek game, so it ties in with one of the Shrek movies. There's actually 3 Shrek games for the Xbox, and they're all actually pretty scarce. I have no idea why. Either they didn't sell, but then again, there was 3 of them, so they must have sold. I guess they're just still really in demand. Certainly aimed at the youngsters, so not ones that I've ever sort of played or tried to track down. But the fact that there's 3 of them makes you wonder. They must have been really, really great sellers. Next, this is fantastic. It got released on many systems, so it's definitely on the PlayStation 2, and there was an arcade version of this as well, and it's the Simpsons Road Rage. It is a little dated nowadays. However, the action is pretty fast and frenetic when I last played it, so it does come recommended. If you're a fan of The Simpsons, I definitely recommend it. But yeah, you go in all the different vehicles that you might have seen, including the school bus and Homer's car, Maggie's car, Marge's car, plus some others that you may not have seen before. Great game, absolutely great game. I like The Simpsons. Next is we've got a few of these Sims games, so I don't think these really played that well on the Xbox, but the fact that they turn up all the time makes me think that they sold bucket loads. I always thought The Sims was one of those games that was just better on a computer personally, but it was The Sims, and then there's The Sims Busting Out, and I believe there's a Sims on Vacation as well, but I haven't actually got that one. This one's great. So this is the Sonic the Hedgehog Mega Collection. So this has got, on the back here, you'll see Sonic Hedgehog 2 and 3, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic 3D, Sonic Spinball, and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Those are the ones that sort of came out on the Mega Drive. And then you've got 6 Game Gear games as well, which are also not so good perhaps, but they're on there for the sake of completeness. And then you've got 7 unlockable Sega Mega Drive games, plus exclusive Sonic memorabilia, including comics, illustrations, and movies. So there you go, eh? Quite a nice little package, that Sonic one. I mean, all right, there's been better compilations now with more on them, but this is one of those early ones, and I think it's worth getting your hands on to play a bit of classic Sonic on your Xbox. This next one's Soul Calibur 2. So after Dead or Alive, I think this is probably my favourite beat 'em up on the Xbox. Certainly myself and my son have played a lot of this one. It's a lot of fun. There's some really crazy sort of characters on it, and when you do kill an opponent, the way they die is absolutely hilarious. It's really, really good fun. There are lots of power-ups as well, so as you work your way through, you can pick up power-ups along the way. This one was famous because it includes Spawn, which was the Image, at the time, Image Comics character Spawn. I mean, it was a Spawn movie as well, but this was the only place where you could have Spawn as a playable character, which made this one a little bit more desirable. It's a great, great game. The Soul Calibur 2, certainly that and Dead or Alive 3 are perhaps my favourite two beat-em-ups on the original Xbox. Last couple now, it's a couple of movie tie-ins. So we've got Spiderman II. Now this was the original edition, a nice movie poster, and the game was such a big hit that it came out as an Xbox classic as well. So I've got a couple of different editions of it. It wasn't a bad game. Spider-Man actually lends itself quite well to video games, and it's quite easy to sort of swing around the different buildings. You see the graphics on it are absolutely fantastic, and they spent a lot of money on it because it was a huge movie franchise back in the day, and it comes off in the game as well. It's an Activision one, and it's good. It's really, really good, and that's why it got the classic treatment. So there we are. That's the end of another 50 or so Xbox games in the Old Pal collection. I hope you've enjoyed going through that one. If you have enjoyed today's video, do please give it a thumbs up. Do hit that subscribe button for regular vintage retro gaming content. I've got quite a bit already on the channel, and I've got more planned and more to come. And I shall look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.